The Cleveland Browns are sitting on a quarterback controversy that no one saw coming, and it's not about Deshaun Watson. It's about Shedeur Sanders, the flashy rookie with the famous last name, the massive social media following, and the sky-high expectations. Ever since draft night, fans have been screaming that the Browns stole the biggest sleeper in the entire draft. But now, after just 2 preseason games, the same fans are accusing head coach Kevin Stefanski of something far darker, deliberately sabotaging Shedeur's development. That's right, the word sabotage is being thrown around in Cleveland like confetti. Fans are furious that Stefanski benched Shedeur in the final 2 minutes against the Rams, robbing him of the chance to lead a game-winning drive. To them, it looked personal, like the coach doesn't trust him or worse, doesn't want him to succeed. And if you've been following the chatter online, the narrative has exploded. Is the Browns coaching staff quietly trying to bury Shedeur Sanders before he even gets a real shot? But here's the thing, Ryan Clark, former NFL safety and ESPN analyst, just shattered that entire storyline in one of the most brutal reality checks you'll ever hear. While everyone else was yelling sabotage, Clark came out swinging with a completely different perspective. And according to him, it's not sabotage at all. It's something even harder for fans to accept. See, Ryan Clark didn't just defend Stefanski. He flat out exposed the cold truth about how the Browns and the NFL as a whole actually view Shedeur Sanders. He said the part nobody wanted to say out loud. Shedeur isn't being treated unfairly. He's being treated exactly like what the league always believed he was, a 5th-round quarterback. Let that sink in. For months, the hype machine has painted Shedeur as a future star, maybe even a hidden gem who slipped in the draft. But Clark says the NFL didn't see him that way, and the Browns' actions prove it. Forget the social media buzz, forget the Colorado highlights, forget the last name. In the cold, calculated world of the NFL, Shedeur Sanders is just another late-round rookie fighting for a roster spot. And here's where things get absolutely crazy. While Browns fans are screaming that Stefanski is sabotaging Shedeur, the numbers from that Rams game tell a brutal story. 3 completions on 6 attempts for just 14 yards, 5 sacks, and 0 clutch moments. It wasn't sabotage, it was reality. And Ryan Clark says that reality is exactly why the Browns are handling Shedeur the way they are. So the question isn't, is Stefanski sabotaging Shedeur? The real question is this. What if the Browns are actually saving him? What if the tough love, the benching, and the cold treatment aren't disrespect, but the only way to stop another promising young quarterback from being ruined too soon? Because when you hear what Clark revealed, you'll realize this story isn't about sabotage at all. It's about something much bigger. From the moment Shedeur Sanders touched down in Cleveland, the hype was sky high. Browns fans saw the highlight reels, the swagger, the famous lineage. They weren't just expecting him to make the team, they were expecting him to compete for a starting job. So when Kevin Stefanski pulled Shedeur from the Rams game with over 2 minutes still left on the clock, the reaction was immediate and brutal. To fans, it wasn't strategy, it wasn't development, it was sabotage. Think about it. The Browns were in position for a late-game drive, the exact type of high-pressure moment that quarterbacks dream about. For Shedeur, it could have been the perfect opportunity to silence critics and prove that he belongs in the NFL. But instead of handing the rookie the keys, Stefanski left him standing on the sideline, helmet in hand, watching as Tyler Huntley led the final push. And just like that, the internet erupted. Why won't they let Shedeur play? Is Stefanski scared of him shining? Are the Browns trying to bury him before he even gets a chance? The accusations spread like wildfire across Twitter, Reddit, and fan forums. Within hours, the narrative was locked in. Stefanski doesn't believe in Shedeur Sanders. And if he doesn't believe in him, maybe he never wanted him in the first place. Here's the thing, when you zoom out, the suspicion doesn't come out of nowhere. Cleveland has a long, ugly history of mishandling quarterbacks. Johnny Manziel, Deshaun Kaiser, Baker Mayfield. The list goes on. So when fans saw Shedeur, a young QB with star power, standing on the sideline during crunch time, it triggered every nightmare they've ever had about this organization squandering talent. To them, it looked like history repeating itself. And Shedeur himself didn't exactly help calm the storm. After the game, he admitted he was frustrated. He wanted those final 2 minutes. He wanted to prove he was the alpha, the guy who lives for pressure moments. That honesty only added fuel to the fire. Fans weren't just speculating anymore, they were convinced. The Browns robbed Shedeur of his moment on purpose. But here's where things get complicated. On one side, you've got a passionate fan base screaming sabotage. On the other, you've got a head coach insisting it's about development and protecting a young quarterback. Stefanski brushed off the noise, saying, "I don't concern myself with outside type of things. I'm committed to his development just like all of our rookies." But fans weren't buying it. Why not give him the reps? Why not let him learn under the lights instead of on the bench? That's where the sabotage narrative gained real traction. Because in the NFL, perception is everything. And the perception was clear. Stefanski wasn't protecting Shedeur. He was holding him back. But then Ryan Clark stepped in, and he flipped the entire conversation upside down. When the noise around Shedeur Sanders hit its loudest point, it wasn't a Cleveland coach or front office exec who came forward to address it. It was Ryan Clark, former Super Bowl champion ESPN analyst, and one of the most respected voices in football today. And what he said didn't just silence the room, it cut straight to the heart of the entire debate. Fans wanted to believe that Kevin Stefanski was sabotaging Shedeur, afraid of his rise or unsure how to handle his celebrity status. But Ryan Clark? He threw cold water on that theory in one sentence. "They're treating him like a fifth-round pick." That line hit like a sledgehammer. Because when you strip away the last name, the Instagram followers, and the highlight tapes from Colorado, that's exactly what Shedeur Sanders is, a fifth-round rookie. And in the NFL, fifth-rounders don't get fast-tracked to the starting lineup. They don't get the star treatment. They don't get handed the ball in crunch time. They fight, claw, and grind for every single snap. Clark doubled down. He reminded everyone that if Shedeur's name wasn't Sanders, if he wasn't Deion's son, we wouldn't even be talking about him. Nobody covers the average fifth-round pick like this. Nobody expects them to start week 1 or lead 2-minute drills in their second preseason game. This media circus, Clark argued, was fueled by perception, not reality. And then came the gut punch. Maybe everyone else was wrong about Shedeur. Maybe the scouts, the analysts, even the fans who swore he was a first or second-round talent were the ones living in denial. The NFL made its decision on draft night, and now the Browns are simply reinforcing it with how they're handling him. It wasn't sabotage. It wasn't disrespect. It was cold, calculated evaluation. Clark's words stung because they pulled the curtain back on something fans didn't want to admit. We all bought into the narrative that Shedeur was underrated, overlooked, or disrespected in the draft. But what if he wasn't? What if the NFL saw the same flaws that popped up against the Rams, holding the ball too long, slow processing, forced throws, and decided he wasn't worth an early pick? What if the league was right all along? And that's why Clark's take shook the entire conversation. He didn't let Stefanski off the hook. He didn't hype Shedeur like a fanboy. He told the truth that nobody else wanted to hear. Shedeur Sanders isn't being sabotaged. He's being treated exactly the way the NFL treats late-round quarterbacks. For Browns fans, that reality is tough to swallow. It's easier to believe in conspiracy theories than to admit your rookie QB just isn't ready yet. But Ryan Clark made it clear this isn't about favoritism, disrespect, or sabotage. This is about cold NFL reality. And if Clark's words weren't harsh enough, what came next made things even worse. Because Dan Orlovsky picked up the film, hit play, and exposed the flaws that nobody could argue with. From the moment Shedeur Sanders declared for the NFL draft, the hype machine went into overdrive. Scouts on social media, fan-driven mock drafts, and countless YouTube breakdowns all had one thing in common. They believed Shedeur was a steal waiting to happen. Some pegged him as a late first-rounder. Others argued he'd be a second-round lock. And almost everyone agreed that if he slipped any further, it would be a major mistake. But draft night told a completely different story. Pick after pick went by. Quarterbacks with less buzz, less name recognition, and far less hype were called before Shedeur. And when the dust finally settled, he wasn't a first-rounder. He wasn't a second-rounder. He wasn't even a third or fourth. He landed in the 5th round. That's the brutal part of this conversation that Ryan Clark hammered home. Because while fans saw a superstar in the making, NFL front offices, the people who spend millions evaluating talent, saw something else. They saw flaws in his game. They saw concerns about his transition to the league. They saw a project, not a plug-and-play starter. And here's the kicker. The NFL has been right about this before. Think about the countless can't-miss prospects hyped up by fans and analysts, only to flame out because their flaws outweighed the highlights. It happens every year. And Clark is basically saying that Shedeur Sanders is the latest case of that gap between public perception and NFL reality. See, when fans watch Shedeur, they see the arm strength, the poise, the flashy throws he made at Colorado. They see the swagger that screams franchise quarterback. But when NFL evaluators watch the tape, they see something different. A quarterback who holds the ball too long, struggles with decision-making, and hasn't proven he can read defenses at NFL speed. And when those concerns outweigh the upside, that's how you end up being drafted in the 5th round. But here's where it gets really interesting. The hype around Shedeur wasn't just about his talent, it was about his brand. He's Deion Sanders' son, he's a social media star. He's the face of NIL deals and college football headlines. That made fans believe he was destined for greatness. But the NFL doesn't draft brands, it drafts football players. And when those two worlds collided, the result was painful. Clark's point couldn't be clearer. The NFL didn't undervalue Shedeur. The fans and media overvalued him. And now, the Browns are showing exactly why. They're not rushing him onto the field. They're not handing him the reins. They're treating him like the 5th rounder. He is someone with potential, yes, but also someone who needs time, patience, and serious development. It's a sobering reminder that hype doesn't win in the NFL. Draft capital matters, evaluation matters. And right now, Shedeur Sanders is living proof of that harsh reality. But if Clark's words weren't already a reality check, the film breakdown that came next made it impossible to deny. Because when Dan Orlovsky rolled the tape, the flaws weren't just theories anymore, they were right there on screen. If Ryan Clark delivered the reality check, Dan Orlovsky delivered the receipts. Because when he broke down Shedeur Sanders' performance against the Rams, the tape didn't just confirm the concerns, it magnified them. Forget opinions, forget speculation. The film showed, in crystal clear detail, why the Browns are pumping the brakes on Shedeur's rise. The first thing Orlovsky pointed out was the timing, or rather, the lack of it. On average, Shedeur held onto the ball for 4.5 seconds per dropback. In the NFL, that's an eternity. Defenses are too fast, pass rushers are too skilled, and protection is too shaky for a quarterback to just sit back and wait. By the time Shedeur made a decision, defenders were already in his face. That hesitation turned manageable plays into disasters. Take one sequence early in the game. 1st and 10. Play action, double move on the outside. The route didn't win immediately, but a check down sat wide open. Any veteran quarterback takes the easy completion, lives to fight another down, and keeps the chains moving. Not Shedeur. He went through the full progression, hunting for the backside read that wasn't even part of the primary concept. By the time he tried to get there, the pocket collapsed. Sack. Drive killed. And it wasn't just one play. On 2nd and 9, the Browns ran a simple spot concept, a play designed to give the QB an easy read. The linebacker told Shedeur exactly where the ball should go. If he drifts outside, throw inside. If he stays in, throw outside. It's quarterbacking 101. But instead of trusting the concept, Shedeur predetermined the throw, ignored the read, and forced it outside. Result? Incomplete pass, tougher down, and distance. Then came the backbreaker 3rd and 2, man coverage, motion man creating separation. In the NFL, this is an automatic completion if you throw with anticipation. The receiver breaks, the ball should already be in the air. But Shedeur hesitated, waited to see it open, and by the time he released, the defense closed in. Sack, fumble, momentum gone. What Orlovsky highlighted wasn't just rookie jitters. These were the same issues scouts flagged in college: slow processing, holding the ball, struggling to trust his eyes, bad habits that don't vanish overnight. And that's the key, they're not unsolvable, but they take time. Time to coach out, time to rebuild, time to rewire. For fans hoping Shedeur would step in and look like a franchise QB from day one, the tape was a brutal wake-up call. Talent? Absolutely. The arm strength, the flashes, the competitiveness, it's all there. But raw talent doesn't beat NFL defenses. Execution does. And right now, execution is where Shedeur struggles most. The film didn't just prove why the Browns benched him late in the game, it proved why the word sabotage never made sense in the first place. This wasn't about hiding Shedeur, it was about protecting him from himself. And if you thought Orlovsky's breakdown was harsh, the next conversation about Shedeur's immediate future was even more devastating. For all the excitement that surrounded Shedeur Sanders coming into the NFL, the reality of his immediate future is far from glamorous. In fact, if you listen to analysts like Ryan Clark and Dan Orlovsky, the road ahead looks more like a grind than a glory ride. And that's the part fans are struggling to accept. The Browns didn't draft Shedeur to start right away. They didn't even draft him to compete for the Cubone job. From the jump, his position was clear. A fifth-round rookie quarterback buried on the depth chart, expected to sit, learn, and develop. But that doesn't match the image that fans built up, or the headlines that surrounded him after his college career. People wanted instant success, but the NFL doesn't operate on hype. Here's the harsh truth. Right now, Shedeur is closer to being a long-term project than a short-term solution. Coaches see the same flaws Orlovsky exposed on film: slow processing, holding the ball too long, missing timing windows. Those aren't issues you fix in a week. They take seasons. And in a league where patience is a luxury, that can be dangerous for a young quarterback's career. Then there's the added pressure of his name. Being Deion Sanders' son isn't just a title, it's a weight. Every mistake Shedeur makes gets magnified because of who he is. Every interception sparks conversations about whether he's overhyped or protected by his father's brand. And in Cleveland, a city starving for stability at quarterback, fans won't be patient forever. What's even more concerning is how the Browns are structuring his development. Instead of rushing him, they're insulating him. They signed veterans, built packages around more experienced arms, and made it clear Shedeur will have to wait. That might be the right football move, but from a public perspective, it fuels the narrative that the team doesn't trust him yet. And let's not forget the cruel reality of the NFL draft. Fifth-round quarterbacks rarely become stars. The odds are stacked heavily against them. For every Tom Brady story, there are dozens of names forgotten within 3 seasons. That's the category Shedeur is fighting to avoid. So what does the future really look like for him? Best case scenario, he sits for a year or two, learns the system, and slowly earns the trust of the coaching staff. Worst case scenario, the Browns lose patience, move on, and Shedeur becomes another cautionary tale of hype colliding with reality. It's not the story fans wanted, it's not the headline that sells jerseys, but it's the truth. Shedeur's immediate future isn't about highlight reels or miracle comebacks. It's about survival. Surviving the criticism. Surviving the weight of expectations. Surviving the slow grind of learning how to play quarterback in the toughest league in the world. And just when fans thought things couldn't look any darker, whispers started surfacing about locker room tension, a storyline that threatened to add even more drama to Shedeur's already complicated journey. When it comes to Shedeur Sanders, the debate has never been about talent. Even his harshest critics admit the arm strength is there, the pocket presence flashes, and the competitiveness jumps off the screen. But in the NFL, raw talent is only half the battle. The other half, and often the deciding factor, is development. And right now, that's where the gap between expectation and reality becomes impossible to ignore. Talent is what got Shedeur here. It's what turned heads during his college days at Colorado, what made highlight reels explode across social media, and what convinced fans he could be a game changer for the Browns. He thrives in chaos, can create plays out of nothing, and has that signature Sanders swagger. But the NFL doesn't reward improvisation the same way college football does. Against faster defenses and complex schemes, improvisation quickly turns into bad habits, exactly the kind Orlovsky exposed on film. Development, on the other hand, is slower. It's boring. It's the grind of sitting in film rooms, making the same throw 100 times until it's automatic, and learning to trust reads instead of instincts. It's about unlearning the habits that made you a star at one level in order to survive at the next. And that's the exact battle Shedeur faces, balancing the undeniable talent that brought him to this stage with the discipline required to thrive in the NFL. The Browns coaching staff knows this. That's why they aren't rushing him. They see the flashes the laser throws across the middle, the quick release when he actually trusts what he sees, but they also see the moments when those flashes vanish, replaced by hesitation and overthinking. They know that if they put him out there too soon, defenses will expose him over and over again, potentially damaging his confidence beyond repair. And this is where the tension lies. Fans want to see the talent, but the team wants to prioritize the development. It's a tug of war between excitement and patience, between highlight reels and long-term investment. For every fan screaming that Shedeur is being held back, there's a coach quietly insisting that he's being protected. What makes this even more complicated is the media machine around him. Every practice clip, every preseason snap, every analyst breakdown becomes part of the larger debate. Is Shedeur being wasted, or is he being groomed the right way? It's the same conversation that has followed countless quarterbacks before him, but with his name, the spotlight burns brighter and hotter. At the end of the day, talent without development burns out. Development without patience collapses under pressure. Shedeur has the first part. The question is whether the Browns can give him enough time, structure, and support to master the second. Because until that happens, he'll remain stuck in the middle, a player overflowing with potential but trapped by the process required to unlock it. And just when the conversation seemed to center on football alone, whispers about locker room dynamics hinted that Shedeur's journey wasn't only about talent and development, but also about trust, chemistry, and respect inside the team itself. Every young quarterback enters the league with a balancing act between patience and pressure, but for Shedeur Sanders, that balance is more fragile than most. On one side, there's the voice of reason, the coaches urging him to wait, to learn, to trust the process. On the other side, there's the roar of expectation, the fans, the media, and the legacy of his last name demanding results now. And caught in the middle is Shedeur himself, trying to prove he belongs in a league that chews up and spits out quarterbacks every single season. Patience is what the Browns want. They drafted Shedeur in the 5th round knowing he wasn't a ready-made starter. They saw a project with raw ability and charisma, someone who could one day lead a team if given time to develop. Their message from day one has been simple: don't rush him, protect him from the spotlight, insulate him from the storm, and hope he emerges stronger. But pressure is what the outside world delivers. Fans don't want to hear about development curves or long-term plans. They see a quarterback with the Sanders name, a player hyped up on social media as a game changer, and they expect fireworks. Every throw in practice gets dissected. Every preseason snap is turned into a headline, and every delay in his ascent sparks theories that the team doesn't believe in him. What makes the situation even tougher is that Shedeur himself isn't wired to sit quietly. That competitive fire, the same one that helped him carry Colorado in impossible situations, doesn't just switch off in the NFL. He wants to prove people wrong. He wants to be out there, leading drives, making plays, silencing critics, but rushing onto the field before he's ready could be the very thing that derails his career. This tug of war isn't new in the NFL. Dozens of young quarterbacks have faced it before, and history shows how dangerous it can be. Some crumble under the weight of expectations, never given the chance to grow at their own pace. Others thrive only because their teams ignored the noise and stuck to the plan. The question now is, which path will Shedeur walk? The patience versus pressure debate isn't just about Shedeur's development, it's about the identity of the Browns themselves. Are they a franchise willing to think long-term, even if it means enduring criticism now? Or will they eventually cave to the demand for a quick fix, tossing Shedeur into the fire before he's prepared? For now, the scales lean toward patience, but the NFL is a results-driven league. If the Browns stumble, if the offense looks stale, or if the veterans struggle, the calls for Shedeur will grow louder. And once that pressure reaches a breaking point, no amount of planning will keep him on the sidelines. Because in the NFL, patience is fragile, and pressure always finds a way to win. Whenever a young quarterback enters the NFL spotlight, stories start swirling, some grounded, in fact, others fueled by speculation. For Shedeur Sanders, the line between perception and reality has become increasingly blurred. Headlines have painted him as everything from a future franchise savior to an overrated project destined to fail. But what's the real truth behind all this drama? First, it's important to separate hype from reality. The hype has been impossible to ignore. With the Sanders name, Shedeur inherited expectations before he even threw an NFL pass. Social media amplified every college highlight, every bold prediction, and every clip that hinted at greatness. The narrative practically wrote itself. Deion Sanders' son, poised to take over the NFL. That kind of storyline sells, but it also distorts the reality of where Shedeur truly is in his development. The reality is far less dramatic, but much more complicated. Shedeur is a 5th-round pick learning the hardest position in professional sports. He's not being sabotaged, hidden, or wasted. He's going through the same growing pains that dozens of quarterbacks before him have endured. He flashes brilliance one moment and looks overwhelmed the next. It's not unusual, it's not scandalous. It's simply the process of development. But the drama persists because of two things: timing and visibility. The Browns are a franchise desperate for stability, and their quarterback room has been a carousel for years. Fans are tired of waiting. That frustration spills onto Shedeur, making his situation seem bigger than it really is. Add in the fact that every snap he takes gets magnified online, dissected by analysts, replayed on highlight reels, and debated endlessly, and suddenly normal rookie struggles become a full-blown media storm. And then there's the unspoken element, his last name. Being a Sanders in the NFL is both a blessing and a burden. It opens doors but also raises the bar. Every setback is judged twice as harshly because of the family legacy attached to him. The truth is that Shedeur isn't just fighting to prove himself as an NFL quarterback, he's fighting to step out of his father's shadow while carrying that same spotlight on his back. So, what's really happening behind the scenes? Insiders suggest that the Browns are cautiously optimistic. Coaches reportedly like his work ethic, his ability to absorb information, and his natural leadership qualities. They also acknowledge the flaws holding onto the ball too long, forcing throws under pressure, but those aren't career-ending issues. They're fixable with time, repetition, and patience. The real truth behind the drama is this: Shedeur Sanders is neither a hidden superstar nor a wasted pick. He's a developing quarterback, navigating the exact storm that comes with being both talented and heavily scrutinized. The drama isn't about his play as much as it is about the narrative surrounding him. And until the spotlight shifts, that narrative will continue to overshadow the reality. But one thing's for sure, as the season progresses, the truth will eventually reveal itself on the field, not in headlines. At the end of the day, the story of Shedeur Sanders isn't just about football. It's about expectation, legacy, and the pressure of living under the brightest spotlight imaginable. From the moment his name was called on draft night, the debate began. Is he the future face of the Browns, or just another quarterback thrown into the chaos of a franchise searching for answers? We've seen the narratives play out, the sabotage theories, the doubts raised by analysts like Ryan Clark, the breakdowns pointing to bad habits, and the constant tug-of-war between patience and pressure. The truth, as we uncovered, is far more complex. Shedeur is a work in progress, one who shows flashes of the brilliance that made him a star in college, but also the raw flaws that remind us he's still adjusting to the NFL. But here's the part that can't be ignored. The story isn't finished. What happens next could define not just Shedeur's career, but the reputation of the Browns' front office. If they rush him, the league could watch another young quarterback collapse under the weight of expectation. But if they protect him, nurture his development, and give him time, he may silence every critic and carve out a legacy all his own. The most fascinating part is that nobody, not the analysts, not the coaches, not even Shedeur himself, can fully predict which way this story will go. That's the beauty and the brutality of the NFL. Careers can be shaped by a single moment, a breakout performance, a crushing injury, or a season that changes everything. Shedeur's moment is coming. The only question is whether he'll be ready when the opportunity arrives. For fans, that's what makes following his journey so captivating. Every snap he takes isn't just about stats, it's about seeing whether he can rise above the noise, step out of his father's shadow, and prove he belongs in a league where nothing is guaranteed. And let's be honest, whether you believe in him or not, you'll be watching to see how it unfolds. So here's where I turn it over to you. Do you think Shedeur Sanders is the Browns' future, the quarterback who could one day carry this franchise back into the spotlight, or is he just a... If you enjoyed today's breakdown and want to keep up with all the drama, trades, and behind-the-scenes action in the NFL, then don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps this channel grow and lets us know you love this kind of content. And hey, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with your friends, your group chats, or anyone who loves football as much as you do. The more the conversation spreads, the better it gets. Most importantly, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel and tap the notification bell. That way, you'll never miss when we drop fresh stories, wild rumors, or breaking updates that the mainstream media won't talk about.